improving air quality in India is better than curing cancer. So I became the most measured person in human history.
Mental health is similar to air pollution, is largely unaddressed.
I had a bad diet, I was overweight, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't sleeping, and depression got the better of me. We've reduced my speed of aging to 0.64. My birthday happens every 19 months.
The space of aging and longevity has been very boring overall.
The human brain cannot comprehend living forever.
Yeah. In some ways, I think you took the internet by storm a few years ago, where people started hearing about, here's this guy who's spending millions of dollars every year.
One day, this guy did this thread on X, and it went viral. The result was this tsunami of hate. We are at this incredibly special moment of time as a species, and we don't want to mess this up by killing ourselves, killing each other, or killing the planet.
Bryan, welcome to SparX.
Thank you.
I see you are traveling with your air monitoring device here. Let's start there. What is, do you carry this with you everywhere? And what are the parameters do you look at to know whether the room is safe for you to wear or not?
Yeah, we carry this. This is a air quality device, and we take this everywhere we go. Mm-hmm. We have, every person on our team has one for their rooms, and then we go about in every hotel we're at. We look at the lobby, the gym, and then when we're outside. And so the primary things we look at, the biggest contributors to pollution in India are PM 2.5 and PM 10. Mm-hmm. And so the WHO recommendation is 5. Mm-hmm. In this room right now, we're it's hovering between 10 and 12. And so it's okay. In this room, we're still 2x above WHO recommendation, which is inside of a really nice hotel, which has nice air filter systems. But yeah, so we carried this everywhere. And then in Mumbai, we carried an air filter with us everywhere we went. We would set it up in the place we were at to clean the air.
What was the PM 2.5 there?
In Mumbai, outside, it was between 80 and 100.
Oh, wow.
So it was almost 20x.
20 times.
Almost 20 times the recommended, the recommended standard. And even inside, it was interesting. I guess sometimes it takes a tourist to see something.
Right.
And so it was, when we came here, we had prepared with masks and filters, and then we found that nobody paid attention to the air quality anywhere. Mm-hmm. Nobody had filtration devices. Nobody knew how to do measurements. So we tried to build our own systems.
Yeah, air quality has been in news in India last couple of months. Every year, especially around winter time and up north, the air quality really just goes off the charts and gets one of the worst in the world. And I think earlier you were sharing that some analysis you did that if you are able to just figure out air quality here, the impact on life expectancy will be close to 3.5 years per person, which is more than what eradicating cancer will do.
Exactly. That it was because we started doing research when we came, and we said, okay, so what impact does bad air quality have? And we were shocked to find that basically improving air quality in India is better than curing cancer.
Well, I hope some of the policymakers will also listen to this episode of the podcast, and I'm sure there are a lot of low-hanging fruit. You mentioned you're going to China next week. I remember Shanghai used to be one of the worst polluted places in the world, but they have done an outstanding job.
They have.
Hopefully, if you're going to Shanghai, you will see a lot more cleaner air.
Yeah.
Now, so Bryan, earlier we were speaking, and we kind of found that both of us got inspired by on this longevity journey way back in 2006 with the Ray Kurzweil's book, and you mentioned he's also a close friend of yours. So what happened, when you read that book, just walk me through your thought process and your kind of personal reflection from that book, and what changes you started to make, as far as the field of longevity is concerned.
Yeah. Ray presented such a compelling vision of the future. He made these charts, showing that technology progress is exponential and not linear, and that we could imagine a future that would potentially be far beyond our ability to comprehend. And that was just so exciting. I had read sci-fi, but I hadn't seen somebody approach it in such a rigorous manner and paint a picture that this is actually a legitimate way to understand the future. So I just felt really excited about how he framed the world. And I wanted in. I thought this would be a great path to follow. So yeah, I was really persuaded. Then he wrote the book with Terry Grossman. And I remember the section where Terry recounts meeting Ray at that conference. And they were in line, and they struck up this friendship. And then Ray presented to him his accounting of all the foods he'd eaten for the past couple decades. So I just thought that that kind of meticulous management of health was really cool. I mean, he was an engineer building health.
Yeah. And that was the first time, we had, I think, a lot of fad diets. I think Atkins diet was very popular in those days. And we'll have these people who will come up and they'll say, this is one thing you do and everything will be okay about life.
That's right.
While Ray's perspective was very different, very scientific, as you say, and quite rigorous. So after reading that book, did you start making some changes, both in terms of your own lifestyle, as well as maybe trying to learn more about this space, which is, as I recall, longevity was not really something on top of mind. When you read different type of books, it won't come up at all. So afterwards, what changed in your life, from approach to longevity, because that's probably eventually what set you on the path from where you are now.
Yeah. I mean, at that point in time in my life, I had this burning problem that I was chronically depressed. I had 3 little babies. I was building a startup. I had challenges with my partner, and I had a bad diet. I was overweight. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't sleeping because of all the things going on, and depression got the better of me. And so I was in a really bad spot. And so I called Grossman and I wrote him a letter, and I detailed out a 35-page summary of everything I had done to try to fix my depression with nothing working. And I said, please, help me. I desperately want to end my life and I need some help. So that's how my relationship with him commenced. And then, so it was really just trying to catch a breath that I was really in a bad spot.
Got it. And how did the conversation with Grossman go? Like, were you able to get inputs and pointers that you were able to bring back and change your lifestyle to, handle your depression?
Yeah. He, I think, I'm not sure how much he did this before Ray versus how much he did this after Ray, but he really helped me approach my health from an engineering standpoint. Let's do these labs. Let's look at these endpoints. Let's consider the evidence behind this thing. And so he was like a V0 of Blueprint. And he because before I'd seen other doctors and in the traditional medical system, there's just no way you're going to get help to solve it. You need someone who's kind of like an investigative practitioner, and he was that.
Got it. And then eventually, dealing with this, just maybe I'm going tangent for a second because this is such a pertinent topic in India. Mental health is similar to air pollution, is largely unaddressed. And at the, most people, they will get maybe some therapy recommendation or some SSRIs, but lifestyle is by and large absent from the conversation. So I think from what you're saying is lifestyle is probably the biggest factor, which is hard to really figure out. You have to do all these labs and figure out and a lot of interventions. But is that something in your journey played a major role in kind of...
Entirely. Yeah. Like I was, like when someone's overweight, they see it, you see it, it's very clear. When someone is depressed or anxious or has some other mental challenges, you can't see it. And everybody puts on a smiling face. And so they want to pretend like they're not having it. So there's really this strong social incentive to not show your cards. So therefore, people have a false perception of how many people are actually in very serious mental pain. That's probably the majority of people. I was at Y Combinator a couple of weeks ago speaking, and I said to them, the majority of you have very serious mental health problems. And the room kind of went quiet. And it's true though, right? I mean, this as a founder, it's really, really hard. And not to say that other areas are also not hard, but yeah, it's really, so I've tried to destigmatize it. And I've also tried to say that, these things to do you can take antidepressants, do the things, but really some of the more powerful interventions are getting the basics right, sleep, diet, exercise. So yeah, I would like to we've done phase 1 of Blueprint. Now I'd like to do phase 2, which is much more about mental health. I think it's where most people want to find reprieve from the suffocation of it.
Got it. And just, for just again, going back to Ray's book for a second, my recollection of reading that book was, one of the things he made the case very strongly that for every 1 year, basically his, I think, argument was that medical progress is happening, so fast that, each year, if you can delay your aging by, make sure it's less than 1 year, then you're kind of gaining and you're aging less. And now it's nearly 20 years since that book came out. How do you see your journey over last 20 years? You think you have managed to do that well, like for 20 odd chronological years? Have your biological age progressed a lot less compared to...
Yeah. it's so fun. I have not thought about this for so long, so it's really fun to reminisce with you on this. So when Ray was talking about that, I loved the idea. You just work your way back to zero.
Yeah.
And so at the time, there wasn't really robust ways to measure biological age.
Yeah.
Like it was just really an emergent area. Whereas now we have a lot of these DNA methylation clocks. So yeah, I've been measuring my DNA methylation. I'm probably the most DNA methylated measured person in the world. We've been doing it weekly for 4 years.
Yeah.
And so, we've reduced my speed of aging to 0.64. So that's one of the best in the entire world. And so as an oversimplification, my birthday happens every 19 months. And so I'm really shocked that what we have done has been that successful. I wouldn't have imagined, having read Ray's book and understood the concept in 2006, to now fast forward to 2024 and to actually have a clock that says, this is your speed of aging, this is the aging of your organs. So what a cool time to be alive.
So from, as far as the, best understanding of science is concerned, like for every 12 months that's elapsing, you are aging roughly 8 months in about 2/3 of that period. And just maybe, for our, listeners may not understand exactly what does, biological clock mean. Like, what's your understanding of that? What does it mean for me to age less than 1 year while celebrating my birthday every year?
Yeah. So at a foundational level, there's a person's chronological age, which is the time in which they were born. And there's a person's biological age. And so one thing we tried to do with this endeavor is we tried to measure the biological age of every one of my organs, because the heart has a different age than the lungs different than the brain. And so you can measure the biological age according to a few approaches. One, you can look at the structural elements of the organ and determine an age. You can also look at the functional elements. So the heart, you can look at the aortas and whatnot for structural. For functional, you can say what is max heart rate. So you can tease apart age on the various organs from different parameters. And then there's these DNA methylation clocks, which looks at age differently, where they're looking at basically like chemical patterns in the body. And so there are these patterns matched to certain age groups and speed of aging. So it's just pattern matching of what the body's doing. You're reading out the information to say this person's aging at this kind of rate.
And how many such biological clocks do you track roughly? Because from what I understand, there now, and you're kind of alluding to it, there are multiple parameters. There used to be this Horvath's clock, I think, a while back, and over a period of time, and maybe because as you're saying that different organs have different aging rate. So how many such, if let's say I really want to understand biological age of my entire body, different systems, what all do I need to measure to get a good handle on?
Yeah, so first is it's helpful to understand that these clocks measure different things. So when you build a clock, you tune it to a certain thing you want to measure. And so some people will take they'll compare two different clocks and they'll get two different ages and they'll say, see, this is junk science, doesn't work. But what they don't realize is that the clocks are they're taking different parameters they're measuring. And so we use the Newton pace clock by True Diagnostic. They're 3rd generation. It's proven to be probably the most robust clock for speed of aging. Other clocks specialize in other things, but that's the one we've primarily used. It was built upon, I think, one of the longest longevity studies built out of New Zealand. And we've had great success. We've actually seen, because we've been measuring this, so frequently, we see it very strongly correlate with other things we're doing. So it seems to be a common narrative that does in fact agree with most everything else we're doing. So if I have good blood markers or bad blood markers, I do a certain therapy, it does generally try to follow that trend.
Got it. And you mentioned you are measuring this every week. Is it just a blood draw or what?
Yeah.
That's it.
You just do a finger prick, and draw some blood, do a blood spot card. So it's very easy. It's at home. You don't need to do a venous puncture.
Got it. That's probably, I think some folks offer, some biological age testing in India, but I'm guessing it's probably a good business opportunity as well for people interested in longevity to offer, because, I'm pretty sure all the people in this room would love to know on a regular basis, how fast, my biological age is progressing.
Exactly.
Is this, beyond True Diagnostic? Are you seeing different players come up? Is this in US, is it getting mainstream where a lot of people have interest in measuring?
It is, yeah. Right? So my company, Blueprint, now offers it. So we've partnered with True Diagnostic. We now offer their test. So there's a lot of clocks being developed. So I think that it's a it's a robust area of development. I'm very excited about them. And now these clocks, I guess this is exciting. They are now correlated strongly enough with phenotype, the blood draw markers. So you can, if you do your blood draw, you want to find things out like your HbA1c, which just shows you your trailing average of your blood glucose levels. The epigenetic markers now predict that with a high enough accuracy where it could actually replace a blood draw. Now, they haven't achieved that on all markers yet, but there's enough there where it's exciting to think that we could basically do the equivalent of blood draws at home with blood spot cards. So it could get lower cost and be easier for more people to measure their markers.
Amazing. Are you planning to bring Blueprint to India at some point?
We came here for several reasons. One was to kind of fill out what we could do. So yes, we'd love to be in Blueprint. I think we've built the best health program in the world. I mean, if you currently think about this, where like we were talking about this before, if you want to get healthy, there's a few different paths. You could go out and listen to podcasts and read books and then try to put together your own thing. But that's hard because you have to kind of like piece together everyone's disagreements. You could go find a longevity doctor, but then of course, like they're going to have their own opinions, their own limitations. And then you can go to like an executive group where you should be paid like 50 grand and you get this full battery.
Right.
The challenge with all those things is that you're getting certain tests, but you don't get this comprehensive wellness protocol. So what we've done is we've tried to say, we're going to give you every calorie you eat, like all your foods. It has the nutritional content that's ideal. We've tested all for toxins. And it's macro appropriate. And then we're also going to give you all your tests. So including blood work, your DNA methylation stuff, your microplastics and full body MRI, and then a community to actually practice sleep and diet and exercise. And so like I'm hoping that we can actually help people achieve better health than anything out there, like playing to the power laws of basic measurement and basic habits.
And that's incredible. You know, as somebody who's been very enthusiastic about this space, I think putting it all together, it's, massively challenging. There's so many providers, so much information, contradictory information, and so on. It becomes very daunting. So I think if you are able to, build a platform where you bring all the key aspects together in one place and make it easy for people, to follow that and also measure it so that it's just not belief-based. I can also see whether, my biological age is progressing slowly or not. And that'll be amazing. I don't want to get into business discussion, but as somebody who runs the largest gym chain in India, we have 800,000 subscribers. I think offline, I'll discuss with you.
That's amazing.
Some of these products to these fitness enthusiasts.
I would love that. Like we're trying to find friendlies to work with, so that'd be great. Yeah,
sure. We'll follow up on that. Bryan, I want to also zoom out. This longevity also brings a bit of philosophical perspective. For a lot of people have different relationship with age.
Yeah.
At some level, I guess it's given that probably no one wants to die or spend second half of their life, dealing with all these lifestyle diseases and so on. But still, dialogue is not very straightforward. People have, don't have the right language to talk about what aging means to them.
Yeah.
Simple question as, how long do you want to live? I think people will struggle to answer. Should you live longer or not? Again, not clear answer. So what has been your mental model to think about, what does aging mean to you and what is the big picture here? Do you want to live forever? Do you want to live to 200 years? Do you want to be the best possible health till 100? Like, how do you look at this?
Yeah, there's two ways to think about it. One is that the human brain cannot comprehend living forever.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody, they will say no. They'll say, I'm going to get bored, or my family and friends won't be with me. So I never talk about living forever. If you ask somebody, do you want to live tomorrow? They say yes. I've got things going on. I have a fun birthday party to go to. And so living for tomorrow and living forever are the exact same idea. There's no difference.
Yeah.
So really, it's all about living for tomorrow, because if we all can do that, just one day at a time. And then number two, what I'm really trying to do is, like, if you were to imagine going back 1,000 years in time and telling somebody that one day you would hold a thing in your hand that would allow you to speak to any person in the world in real time and see their face in real time, it would have been inconceivable, like magic to a degree that it just would be unintelligible. And, like going back to Kurzweil's book, if you were to tell somebody that we're not going to age or have to die, it's equally inconceivable in this moment. But when you look at the trends of the speed at which AI is progressing, our ability to manipulate biology, our ability to program the world through the atomic level, biological level, it really is the first time, just the past few years, like the past 3 years,
Yes.
is the first time in human history where somebody could say with a straight face, it may be time. Just happened now. It's like one of the coolest moments in our entire history. And so to me, the Don't Die endeavor is basically to say we are at this incredibly special moment as a moment of time as a species, and we don't want to mess this up by killing ourselves, killing each other, or killing the planet. It's really, we want to be around for this thing. So that's what it's really like a species-wide thing of the future of intelligent existence.
Got it. So is that, you think, the longevity research, the long-term endeavor is to figure out a way where at least dying is optional? And do you, like, in your heart of heart, you believe that, we are at the cusp of those breakthroughs? There are some today, some probably, the law, exponential growth over coming decades can put us in a situation where that may be a realistic possibility, as hard as it may be to imagine today.
Yeah. So Dario, founder, CEO of Anthropic, one of the big AI companies in the US, he's a friend of mine. He recently wrote a blog post where he said he predicts that AI will lead to 100 years of progress in the next 5 years. Now, like Dario he's not prone to exaggeration. He's a well-reasoned, calm person, and I agree with him. I think we're going to see an explosion. That's why I think that right now we're just at the absolute beginning of the curve, and longevity and the desire to live is going to be dramatically changed to incomprehensible levels, even in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And people don't have to believe, they don't have to want to live forever. They just want to feel good. They just want to be their best self, and they want to look good. So we don't even need to sell anything other than like just, be you and look and be your best self.
Right. And, there is this, I think a lot of things you said. I want to ask follow-up question on a lot of those. So let me break it down. First is, okay, there is this one aspect of, at least a possibility of many of us living to, 100, 150, 200, or longer. There's this other, more real aspect of, I think most of us today, I think both of you are on a similar age, approaching 50. In the past, second half of life is, you slow down, you prepare for your retirement, you think about, managing grandchildren and so on. But I think given all the advancement we've already seen and technology already here, what's your advice to people to think about second half of their life? And the reason I'm asking is maybe it's I believe that, we're at a point where second half life can be as full of energy and drive as, first half of one's life, assuming 100 is the upper limit, which I think both of us probably agree is not. But your advice to people who are crossing the threshold of 50 and maybe starting to deal with some of the early lifestyle diseases, what is the alternate universe that they can aspire for?
Yeah. As kids, oftentimes we get this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I think now the appropriate question for those, 50 and above is, what do you want to be when you grow younger? That it really is a realistic contemplation. Now, right now, it's not clear what that means. You can do all the things, like, for example, that I'm doing and immediately change your health, but you're not going to become an 18-year-old overnight. But I think in the coming years, there's probably going to be signs where it gives somebody pause of like, okay, actually, I believe this. Whereas I think most people understandably kind of give up. It hurts and they're in pain and the discipline is hard. And so you might as well just accept the gradual decline. So I know my father's that way. He's 71 and man, he has like a fire lit under him. He has just a dramatic turnaround and he has so much vibrancy and excitement now. He wants to make it.
And he was on the track on his own, or, with collaboration with you, he has like last few years reinvented himself?
Yeah, so he's actually had pretty poor health his entire life. He's been overweight his whole life. He used hard drugs for decades, cocaine. And so when he runs his life history through a life expectancy calculator. It predicts his life expectancy to be 68. So he's past due. It's a scary thought. I mean, that'd be scary. But I got him entirely on my protocol 3 years ago, and he's just fully embraced it. I've taken him through all the therapies I've done, and his friends just look at him in awe. They just can't quite comprehend how much he's turned around.
Mm-hmm. I think what you said earlier, I think is such a profound statement, who will you want to be when you're young? And I think that has a lot of, personal resonance with me. Sometime, I know I've had about a 25-year career. I've done few things, but sometimes I ask myself a question that, can I still operate like someone who is 21, just out of college? And, because that also very liberating. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of freedom. Your risk appetite goes up. You're not afraid of trying things, as opposed to operating someone who's 50, where you feel you have a reputation to protect, you can't fail, to be safe, what will other people think, and so on. So I think, just asking that question that, you have, one is the tools at your disposal where you can really slow down your aging process, and then think of, second life, third life. It's as we've seen, a couple of decades is a long period of time to have entire career in different fields, and those possibilities are opening up for all of us.
Well said.
Let me spend some time on the protocols you have developed. So let's just maybe backtrack. And when did you start working on longevity, both for yourself in a fairly rigorous manner? I think, in some ways, I think you took the internet by storm a few years ago, where, people started hearing about, here's this guy who's spending millions of dollars every year, like everything is measured, there's a whole team working with you. Like, what was the, just take us back to that moment when you decide to, in some way, you kind of go all in and say, I'm going to really figure this thing out, and also going to share it with the world, which I think is, outstanding service. But let's go back, and how did that whole transition start?
Yeah, it was all the result of a thought experiment I did. So I was meditating. So after I sold my company, Braintree Venmo, I made $300 million. And it was the result of like a lifelong goal to have the freedom to do something. And I was trying to think through, like, what do you do? And I kept on running up against these problems in my mind where I could feel the limitations of my own intelligence. I could feel that I couldn't see what I didn't know. I couldn't see outside my own frames. And so one day I decided to do this thought experiment where I was hanging out in the 25th century. So I traveled in time. I'm a few hundred years in the future. I'm there hanging out with them, and they're in my mind, they're like some kind of amorphous kind of figure. It's not really human, or it's like this new thing, which we can't quite know what it is. And they're conversing amongst themselves, and they're basically expressing appreciation and about what happened in the early 21st century that allowed intelligence to continue to exist as part of the galaxy. And I thought, what would they say? Like, what would they put their finger on? And the first thing that came to my mind was, well, they're going to compress the entire century into three things. Just like we take the 3rd century and we think one thing happened. Even though there were millions of people with all kinds of political drama and wars, and people were excited about their own opportunities, we compress those things over time. And so we're going to be compressed. I thought, okay, so they're going to say two things. One is they're going to say, that's when humanity gave birth to superintelligence, unquestionably. Also, that is when humanity figured out that they could begin extending their lifespans that in a way where they may not die. And it was a zeitgeist shift where death was inevitable, and you have all these death-like solutions, like religions that explain away death, immortality of professional accomplishment, like all the ways humans seek to not die in remembrance. And that's when we figured out. And so I thought that is so obvious. Like, that is exactly what's happening in this moment. And so I wondered, like, okay, if this is the case, like, what does that mean? I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be the first don't die person in human history. I'm going to demonstrate what it means for the will and the process to not die. And so that was the impetus of the project.
It's incredible. So inspiring, And what were the first steps? So, how from that inspiration, and this outstanding thought experiment as well, from there to taking action, what was it like to put the team and the program together? Because I assume you had probably not very in-depth knowledge of what's happening in this space, and which is even hard today to figure out. But it's here, your process of figuring out from that inspiration to putting together the whole machinery.
Yeah. So the first thing was observing that everybody in health and wellness disagreed with everyone. So you couldn't just go somewhere and say, can you tell me what's going on? Because that person has their own viewpoints. And so it really needed to be a comprehensive assessment of all the scientific literature ever published. And so I hired a team. We went through all of the scientific literature, everything. And then we ranked according to effect size. And then we evaluated the evidence. Like, do we believe the evidence or not? And then we took that, we ranked it all, and then we started putting all the evidence into me.
Yeah.
And then actually, so before we put the evidence into me, we then said, okay, can we measure every organ on my body? So we want a baseline, because without a baseline, you don't know if anything's working. It's like that kind of contrasted, because now in health and wellness, people do stuff with no evidence,
Right.
and they do stuff with no measurement.
Yeah.
So nobody knows if what they're doing is working. And so it leads to this situation we have in the world where like everyone's kind of lost in knowing what to do. So yeah, we did that. So I became the most measured person in human history. There's more data on my body than any human ever lived. And it was,
You ever measured, like, is it petabytes or?
yeah, I don't know, actually. That's a good question. It's probably not very high, because like a lot of the variables are just like numbers. I mean, the heavier storage is like imagery from MRI and stuff like that. But yeah, we just like went about measurement, and then we just systematically, and we shared last week, I think I have the best biomarkers of anybody in the world.
Incredible.
And so,
Congratulations.
yeah, and it's of course it's possible that others have better biomarkers, but I just don't know about them. But we published this list of around 43 markers, from my cardiovascular ability to my bone mineral density to my speed of aging to my sleep, to like all down the line.
Yeah.
And some people may beat me in a category or two, but no one's going to beat me like across the entire. We've tried to optimize for every single marker of longevity. I think we're number one in the world.
Wow. We should have longevity Olympics, where
Yes.
we can all bring our longevity markers and, compete against each other. Yeah. But that's just incredible. And, so you've also become in some ways, evangelist for longevity for the whole world. Because, as we were talking earlier, the space of aging and longevity has been very boring overall. It's, people publish in the maybe scientific papers, a particular molecule or some study in some animal model. Very difficult for average person to understand what's going on. And somebody else will pick up one of those things and say whether it's resveratrol or NMN or just one miracle molecule is cure-all for everything. Right from there to, I think, both energizing the world about possibility in longevity and also creating, literally blueprint for so people can also follow along what you're doing. So must be also quite, how do you feel about, being this, unique position? Now you're like self-appointed evangelist for this. Potentially, as you say, maybe, just one of the 2 or 3 things, which will highlight of this century, and you're kind of really leading it from the front.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. So when we started this project, we didn't anticipate virality. We didn't anticipate people would pay attention. And so we just put it out there. And then one day, this guy did this thread on X, and it went viral.
Yeah.
And the result was this tsunami of hate. Like, everyone was so mad, and they wanted to criticize me, and they wanted to they wanted to think the worst of me, and they started calling me names. And I was like, what is even going on? But it was such a cool moment, because it was like, there's a lot of energy behind this. Like, it's coming from somewhere. And that day I was responding to, I just spent like 14 hours on a computer just responding to comments. And it was just like this natural thing where people would insult me and I would just yes and them. Like, I wasn't defensive. I didn't fight. I didn't say mean things. I was just nice and fun. And it really felt good. And so, yeah, we basically just said to this entire thing, like, it's fun. Let's just play. So we've really leaned into it. Like, we play with memes. We play with people poking fun at me. So it's just been, and that's kind of like if you want to make this kind of thing go viral, you need to play with the memetics of the internet culture. You can't play in like a traditional academic paper world. Like, doesn't work.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think everything you're doing is very relatable. I think, a lot of youngsters, they follow your work. And I think it's definitely, increasing people's awareness. I think people are starting to have a conversation about what does aging mean to me, and do I aspire to age slowly than what my chronological age might be. And from there to, creating this blueprint, and I mean, you must have done countless experiments. So what are some of the learnings from that? I'm assuming everything, wouldn't have worked like any experiment. So what has been your process of, first of all, how do you decide, what to try, not to try? Because everything probably comes with some risk as well.
Yeah.
And then at some point, having conviction, because I think you're not running double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies, with large number of humans. You are, it's experimenting yourself, but then you are able to recommend it to your family members, friends, people in general. So what is that process like to figure out, what's worth trying and adopting versus not?
First, a lot of people, they'll say you're experimenting and that seems dangerous. And I remind them that they're experimenting too, and it's also dangerous. But they're experimenting with, junk food and fried food and vaping. And so I remind them that you make as many decisions as I do on a given day. We're both experimenting. So, but sometimes people just default thinking that by default, I have a higher risk profile, but it's actually not true. I mean, actually I'm measuring myself more than anyone else. So we understand what's going on more than they do. So whereas they're blind. And so it's kind of like this inverse thing where they are higher risk than I am. And they're also, because they're not controlling the variables, and they also can't see them. So that's like most people's intuitions on this are exactly the opposite. And then number two is as unsexy as it is, the solutions are in mastering the basics. Like most people, they want to ask a question like, of all the supplements you take, what are the top 5? Or like, what is the one longevity thing? So it's, yes, there's a lot of therapies that are great, and we've done many of them, but really the power laws are in mastering the basics. And so I spend most of my time talking to people about those things, and because they have in their mind that their path of longevity is like through a pill or through like ACE therapy, or if they go to this club, they can do a given thing. So I've tried to redirect efforts of getting them pointed in the right path.
And let's talk about some of the basics. So what are the top 3 basics you think, just absolute must have that anyone who has any interest in health, longevity has to follow? Those are absolute non-negotiables.
Yeah. So it's sleep, exercise, and diet.
How much sleep?
So the parameters you want to hit for sleep, you want to be asleep within a few minutes of your head hitting the pillow. Mm-hmm. So I'm asleep in roughly 60 seconds to 2 minutes. Like I'm out instantaneously.
How do you find that out?
You have a sleep onset indicator. Yeah. So wearables.
Right. So all wearables will give you the data about it.
Exactly. So you see that sleep onset. And then you want roughly 2 hours of REM, roughly 2 hours of deep, thereabouts. Like people vary a little bit.
Yeah.
You want to be up less than 1 or 0 time per night. So you don't want to be up for 2 or 3 times a night. And then you want to be up for less than 30 minutes per night. And then if you hit those stats, then that's really like optimal sleep every night. And you want to be doing it every night. Typically, to get those kinds of stats, you need to be in bed around 7 to 8 hours. It's very hard to cheat it and get 4 hours because you need your deep cycle, you need your REM cycle. Mm-hmm. So those are the 5 things. So yeah, I talk about 5 habits for sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's.
Okay, cool. So this is, I achieved the best sleep score in human history. 8 months of perfect sleep with a wearable.
Mm-hmm. Oura or some other wearable?
I use Whoop.
Whoop, okay,
yeah.
Got it.
But for those listening, any wearable's fine. Yeah. Like Oura's great, Apple's great, Garmin, they're all fine.
And what is the sleep score that that you are happy with? When they, let's say on Whoop or Oura, these guys have all scale of 100, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you consider as a really good night of sleep?
Yeah, Whoop is 100.
100.
Oura is harder. So Oura, if you're in the like high 80s, low 90s, you're doing a great job. Apple, I'm not quite sure how they score it. I don't think they give you a sleep score. I think they just give you a sleep time. But yeah, the 5 habits are, so one is to reframe identity that you are a professional sleeper. A lot of people are very lackadaisical about sleep. They think they can just like do it when they want. You can't. You have to actually respect it, and you have to like you're a professional sleeper. 2 is last meal of the day is 2 hours before bed, if not or earlier. So I have my last meal of the day 9 hours before I go to bed. So before I came here with you today, I had my last meal of the day. So I won't eat for the remainder of the day, and I do that because my resting heart rate will be at 44 tonight. And that's when it's 44 right before bed, I'll have a perfect night's sleep. But really, your resting heart rate before bed is the strongest indicator of whether or not you're going to sleep well. And so eat earlier and lighter. So carbohydrates like pizza and pastas and breads, they would elevate heart rate. Alcohol elevates heart rate. So anything that elevates heart rate, arousal, like if you're uptight. So the last meal of the day, 2 hours before bed, if not more. 3 is light. So try to no screens, turn screens off 1 hour before bed, and do reds and amber lights. So I have a lamp in our house with a red light. 4 is consistency. So my bedtime's at 8:30 p.m. So I try to be in bed plus or minus 30 minutes every night. When I was doing my 8 months of perfect sleep, I was in bed within 1 minute every night. And I have to say, I slept like a baby. The body is so powerful in doing its thing if you give it what it needs, consistency and, final meal of the day and et cetera. And then the last thing is a wind down routine. So one of the biggest problems people have is they put their head on the pillow and then they realize they're just rolling through thoughts and they can't stop the rumination. And then they stay in bed for an hour and then they feel frustrated and they feel concerned. And so the brain demands reconciliation. So the final hour before bedtime is your hour to basically reconcile with the day, things you're worried about, things you're excited about, things you're mad about. And so I typically break myself out into different versions of Bryan, where I say, hey, ambitious Bryan, hi, anxious Bryan, and I'll speak to my various selves about these various things. So when my head is a pillow, I'm reconciled. And also when you wake up in the middle of the night, if you're not reconciled, your brain will be like, hey, we need to talk through these things, and you'll then ruminate, and then you come back to sleep. So that wind down routine, so it's an hour of reconciliation with the brain, self-talk, also reading a book, going for a walk, breath work, meditation. So you don't want to be watching something on the screens. You don't want to have a fight with a partner. You want to really just get your body in a position for sleep.
And this phrase you use, professional sleeper, I think that's almost, talking about creating an identity for yourself instead of think of sleep as a necessary evil or something that's keeping you away from more important things. It is probably the most important thing, as far as health is concerned.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's probably fair to say sleep is the most powerful drug available to any human. There's nothing more powerful.
Mm-hmm. And you said it's 3 things. So next, diet. So what are some of the broad rules about diet? I guess, from what you already mentioned, looks like your eating window is fairly small. So is that, the time restricted eating is an important component, and what are the parameters that people should play with?
So actually I would go to exercise next, only because diet is so emotionally fueled. People have we oftentimes take our emotions to food. And so it's very complicated. It's very hard to eat healthy. It's very hard to stop bad foods. And so I insert exercise in there, 1, because it has more evidence for increasing lifespan. It's number 2. And so exercise, we all know this, when we exercise, we feel good about ourselves. We feel great. We feel more powerful. We feel more like we have more willpower. And so a good night's sleep, you wake up and you say, you know what? I feel great. And now I'm going to exercise. So the exercise, you're like, you know what? I feel really great. Now I want to eat well. And so it's really trying to hit that beat every day. Great sleep, great exercise. And that then bridges you into now I'm going to eat well. And so exercise, I exercise for an hour a day. The general rules are you want to have 4.5 hours a week of zone 2. That just means you could exercise and be talking to someone normally. And then 90 minutes a week where you can't talk to somebody. So it's zone 5. So you're working out so hard, you can't, you're breathing very hard. So that's generally true for activity. And then you want to have inside of that also some weight training, at least 3 times a week. Muscle is very important. Bone mineral density is very important. And then you can always go down the various paths of the very specific things, like what kind of exercises you want to do, what kind of muscle groups. But generally speaking, the beginner's guide, just be active. Right? And then that's okay. Just be active and also don't get injured because injury is very hard. So exercise, it's the concept is very similar. Just be active. And then of course there's this very advanced mode you can get into of the specifics of what your training protocol is, what you're trying to optimize for. But
is it also fair to say that, the protocol you outlined, I think as far as aging and longevity is concerned, I think that'll do the job. And if you get into advanced protocols, it's mostly for performance, that I'm trying to reduce my time for a particular run or marathon, certain time and so on. Not necessarily, a lot of people confuse that, the harder I train, somehow I'm doing, better for my body, but that's not necessarily true. Or What's your perspective?
Agreed. Yeah. So that was something I learned myself going through this process is typically people think, if one of this thing is good for me, two must be better and four must be great. And everything in health and wellness is a U-shaped curve where you hit an optimal point in the curve and then adding any more is actually harmful. And so you can drink too much water, you can have too much oxygen, you can have too much vitamin C. And so everything you want just the right amount.
And just going back to, your just schedule. So 8:30 you are out sleeping. So I'm guessing you get up around 4:30.
Yeah.
And how much time between that waking up to go to gym?
Yeah. So 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So I wake up, I have this routine I do every day. I'll wake up, I immediately get light in my eyes. So I get up before the sun. So I have a 10,000 lux device in my house. I'll sit in front of that. I'll take my temperature of my inner ear. I'll put some growth factors on my scalp for hair growth. I'll put a red light laser cap and I'll sit in front of that light for a few minutes. Then I'll go downstairs. I'll eat a little something before I work out. So it's a Blueprint protein powder, creatine, what I call longevity mix, which has some energy promoting ingredients. I'll then work out for an hour. And then I'll come in and do a few therapies. Right now I'm doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I'm doing a 60-day protocol, 60-session protocol. And I will do red light therapy for 6 minutes. I'm currently doing a peptide, cerebral lysin, and I'll take 40 pills thereabouts. And that's roughly my morning.
This is before your workout? No, after workout.
After, yeah.
After workout.
Yeah.
These pills with food, without food?
With food.
With food.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, and that's effectively your first meal of the day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I have roughly, I forget the count now. It's like between 30 or 40 in the morning, and I think like 10 or 15 thereabouts in the afternoon. So like 50 pills or so in the day.
And overall 2 meals in a day. So your second meal is around noon or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do first meal at like 5-ish, 5:30. Second after I work out like a 7:30, and then a final meal of the day like a 9:30, 10, 11, like somewhere there.
Got it.
So I'm finished by around 11.
Got it. So you have this, looks like 5-6 hour eating window.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
How should people think about 6 versus 10 versus 12? Is there very strong science or to experiment with this? What's there is absolutely no denying that some form of fasting is great for you.
Yeah.
But how do you arrive? How can somebody arrive at the right optimal window?
Yeah, I don't think the science is that particular. I think there's good evidence that time restricted eating does have some benefits. But I think if somebody wants to do 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, I think it's fine. I think it's probably more important the total caloric intake, and probably more important the routine someone does. So I choose this particular routine because my life is built around sleep, and I did a few hundred experiments evaluating what time I have my last meal of the day and what kind of food it is, and then what my resting heart rate is and what my sleep is. And it just came back again and again. My resting heart rate was the best predictor of all things on how I was going to sleep. And I could see if I went to a birthday party and I had like a sandwich that had some bread, inevitably my heart rate would be 55, 60, something in that elevated area, and it would take away 30, 40% of my sleep. So it was just like such an algorithmic thing. And so, yeah, it makes me wonder how I actually survived in life before I started paying attention to these things. But now that I know how these variables interact, it's really freeing to know I can systematically get high quality sleep by doing certain things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised with this, 8:30 p.m. sleep time. But I want to share, I start sleeping before 8:30. So I try to hit the bed between 8 and 8:30.
Yeah.
But that means the evening social life is just gone.
Yeah.
Just no longer able to really go to any dinner or evening engagement. I don't know. What do you do? Do you decline to all of those, or you have a way of navigating, at least going for a couple of hours, sip water and come back and still the pillow by 8:30?
Yeah, I have been trying very hard to be much more socially active. And so the first 4 years of this project were trying to prove that you could achieve don't die, right? The new era is here. And then a lot of people were like, well, that's cool, but you're not living life. And so I was like, okay, so yeah, I've been doing things where I went to a concert. A friend of mine was playing a DJ. And so I went to bed at 7 p.m. I woke up at 9, so I got 2 hours of deep sleep. And then I went to the concert, danced, and I came home around 2 in the morning. Then I got the remainder of my REM. and I still got 100% sleep score. And the next day I felt great. So it was an experiment. Like, can you do this kind of thing? So, and I was exposed to blue light at the dance party. So I wondered, like, was this going to affect me? So I still am very much in the game of experimentation, and we just want to look at the data. So that day after I had, again, 2 hours of deep, 2 hours of REM. I didn't get up at all outside of that window. So it worked to some degrees. Now, like, what I do every day, probably not. But I really have tried to be much more social. But I agree with you, it's very hard. Also, I don't know about you, but most humans in the evenings, like 6, 7, and they're on, like a different version of ourselves come out. And that version is much more prone to behave badly in every single aspect of life. And so in many ways, I like going to bed before that version of me comes out. And I also like the version of me that is in the morning. I wake up feeling great about life, and I have 4 hours where nobody is interrupting me, and it's just open, filled for thought and work. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed that routine.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more, because and I have cataloged these things. Most bad things that we can possibly do, they all happen after 7 p.m. And all great things we can do, they happen in morning hours. Just outstanding. The peace you have, morning sun, the quietness you get, the feeling you get after the workout. It's just incredible. I mean, it says people have to really try it for some time to see for themselves. Sometimes it's very hard, because I think if you have a routine which is very active, let's say from 7 p.m. till midnight, and that's what pretty much your life seems like. So kind of backing off of that may be an effort for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely worth the effort, and good to get your your endorsement for that lifestyle. So last 4 years, you just seriously experimented with yourself, measured everything, put everything out there for other people to also follow along. Yeah. And then you have created this program as well as set of offerings, Blueprint. So why don't you tell us a bit more about that? What exactly is Blueprint? If me as someone who's interested in health and longevity want to follow along Blueprint and consume maybe some of the products and services, how do I go about doing that?
Yeah. So first, I will say that it was not my intent to start a business. My intention was to do a scientific experimentation and pursue whether or not we're at this don't die stage. And not whether, like whether to explore a new frontier. Mm-hmm. And then it went viral. And the most common response I got was, I want to do this, but it's way too hard. And I understand, like, it is very, very hard. And so I basically, we said, okay, we will do this for you. And so we basically have taken my entire protocol and made it as simple and low cost as possible. Mm-hmm. And so, like, the first thing when we were doing this, our experimentation, we learned that when I was buying supplements, let's just say there's a supplement that says it has 2,000 IU of vitamin D. Yeah. If you test it, right, you find out most of the time it doesn't have 2,000 of IU. Like, most things are incorrect. Yeah. And then number two is most food. So food is guilty until proven innocent. Mm-hmm. We tested food. I think we spent $50,000 last month alone testing food. And we learned that the global food supply chain is incredibly toxic. Like we were trying to buy lentils, and we did a bunch of tests, and it came back with very high levels of heavy metals. And we said, we're confused why there's heavy metals in the lentils. Like, we understand it's in cocoa, that's like a natural process, but why? And they said, well, we fertilize with human sludge, and the human sludge is high in heavy metals. And so we're cycling through our heavy metals through our food supply chain. And so with Blueprint, we carefully sourced foods from all over the world. We tested extensively, and then we published those third-party lab results. Mm-hmm. So anybody can go and say, does the nutritional label match? Mm-hmm. Are the foods clean? And then we have all the macros of all the foods I eat. So we try to say, like, this is what we read, Kurzweil's book. Like, when I read what he was doing, I was kind of like, I want to do it too. But again, it was so hard because he had pieced together these things. And so with Blueprint, now you can just say, I'm in, and it's all done for you. The food, and then we have all these tests, blood work, microplastics, speed of aging, whole body, world's best MRI protocol, whole body. And so, I've just really tried to do people a solid that everything is built for them. It's just done.
And this program is available throughout United States now?
It is. Yeah. And hopefully India, like, we would love to bring it here. There's obviously some roadblocks where some things wouldn't be, but I would love to just stamp this out through the entire world. It really is, I think, is the most efficacious don't die program in the world.
Yeah, from the gift of longevity is probably the best gift to give to any humans. Even if you get few extra healthy years, that itself, and people during the later stage of their life, that they struggle for getting that one extra healthy year without problems, so on. So I think what you're doing and the impact it can create is up there and quite profound. What are your expectations from research in this space? Now, in some ways, you have kind of taken things in your hands. You are doing your own experiments, understanding science, reading all the literature coming out. What about the research community? It's, are you seeing things which are happening today, which are in the labs, maybe in clinical trials, or should happen in the coming years? How do we go from 0.64 of biological age per year to 0 per year, or very close to that? What needs to happen on the research side?
Yeah, so there's two parts of this. We need to slow the speed of aging, and then we need to reverse the aging that has happened. So we're not going to win against entropy. So we'll see how far we can get down our speed of aging. Like maybe we max out at 0.5, 0.4, like we just can't do any better, we'll see. But then you have to start doing things like replacing organs. You have to epigenetic reprogramming, molecular factors. So I think that I'm not sure the things we know now will be the answers to aging. It could be the case that we have a new class of discoveries in the coming years that actually are the therapies. It's not clear to me we know yet what to do. I think there's some signs, like the epigenetic reprogramming is interesting, Yamanaka is interesting. So I guess I'm cautious in thinking that we know, or that any one solution is the path. But I just think that generally, the process of our discovery is going to be significantly more robust with AI. And I think in the coming years, it's going to be a very different landscape.
Got it. And you think enough research scientists are working in this area, enough funding is going in? I'm going to compare this with AI. If you look at last 2-3 years, we've kind of hit an inflection points. Hundreds of billions of dollars have gone into that. And some of the best people in the world are working. So when you say next 5 years in AI, we may see 100 years worth of progress, not surprised. Is the proportionate investment happening in this area, or we are still away from that big inflection point?
Yeah, I think the most encouraging thing is that if you look where talent is directed in society, some of the smartest and most capable people have gone into AI, right, over the past 5, 10, 15 years. Like, it really has been a magnet for talent. And now that these models are being built and there's an ecosystem, I think there's potentially a class of those people who will want to go to apply that technology to domains. And so you may find computational people going into biology. Like Demis is a great example of this, of DeepMind. He started off building, aiming for artificial general intelligence, but then he spearheaded the AlphaFold. And that has revolutionized, right, our understanding of molecular interactions and protein folding. I see Demis is a really great example. Dario, the founder of Anthropic, he also is a neuroscientist and biologist. And so, and I don't know about neuroscientist, biologist, computational biologist. But yeah, so I think there's, biology is like this adjacency to AI, which is equally appealing. So I think we should probably see more people focus on that. So that's what, it's not necessarily that I think the anti-aging researchers in the field have it solved. I think that applying the AI talent to the world of biology might be the path of breakthrough.
Got it. And with this, the super intelligence explosion that's on the horizon, I think a lot of new avenues and paths will open up. And like people like yourself, who've done well in the technology world, at some point, some of them will develop a lot of interest or are already developing interest. And that the startup mindset combined with the potential power of AI can unlock, maybe accelerate the rate of progress at the same pace as we're seeing in other areas. But this is outstanding, Bryan. I think it's very inspiring. I think your journey and commitment to this space is incredible. I'm feeling inspired. As somebody who has followed this space for 20 years, I'm like feeling renewed energy to go back, relook at my protocol, and start putting a little extra effort tomorrow onwards. But it's great that you're able to find time to visit India, share your thoughts, and have a serious intention of bringing Blueprint to India. I would love to, continue this dialogue with you and look to for ways to participate, to partner with you, but also want to wish you all the best, and hopefully, your rate of aging continues to come down, and in return inspire a lot of people to also pursue similar paths.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.